10 seconds. That's all it took for one wrestler to go off script and change their entire career. You might be thinking, wait, isn't WWE all scripted anyway? Well, you're not wrong. WWE is like a well-oiled machine, with every move, every word, and every outcome planned down to the last detail. Wrestlers are supposed to stick to the script like glue. But here's where things get interesting. Sometimes these larger-than-life personalities decide to throw the rulebook out the window. Maybe they get caught up in the moment, or they're just sick of following orders. Whatever the reason, when a wrestler goes off script, it's like lighting a match in a room full of fireworks. You never know what's going to happen next. Trust me, the consequences are bigger than you think. Some of these moments changed careers forever. Let's dive in and see who dared to break the rules. Braun Strowman versus Brock Lesnar. Back in 2019 Royal Rumble, the crowd was on fire. Two of WWE's biggest powerhouses, Braun Strowman and Brock Lesnar, were facing off in a match that was supposed to be carefully choreographed. But sometimes, even the best-laid plans go sideways. As the match heated up, Strowman landed a knee that was a bit too stiff for Lesnar's liking. Never one to back down, decided to go off script. In a split second, he retaliated with a real punch that caught Strowman off guard. The crowd went wild, but backstage, it was a different story. Really interesting. This wasn't just about one punch. It was about the delicate balance between putting on a great show and maintaining professionalism. Lesnar's actions didn't just affect his relationship with Strowman, they sent shockwaves through the entire company. So what happened to Strowman and Lesnar after this? Well, that's where things get a bit murky. WWE likes to keep these kinds of backstage issues under wraps. But you can bet there were some serious conversations had, and maybe even some fines handed out. The incident definitely affected how these two superstars interacted in future matches. There was always that underlying tension, that unspoken history between them. It added a layer of realism to their rivalries that you just can't script. Chris Jericho versus Neville. Alright, we've seen what happens when tempers flare and punches fly for real. But what about when things go wrong in a totally different way? Sometimes wrestlers have to think fast to save not just the match, but their fellow performer. Let's rewind to 2016. It was a Monday Night Raw, and the crowd was pumped. Chris Jericho, a veteran of the ring, was facing off against the high-flying sensation Neville. But then, in the blink of an eye, everything changed. Neville went for one of his signature moves, and something went terribly wrong. He landed awkwardly, and just like that, he was injured for real. This wasn't part of the script. This wasn't planned. This was one of those moments where the line between performance and reality gets blurry, and not in a good way. Now, imagine you're Chris Jericho. You've got a hurt opponent, a confused referee, and thousands of fans watching live. What do? Well, if you're Jericho, you improvise. In a split-second decision that would make even the best improv actors jealous, Jericho took control of the situation. He shoved the referee hard. It's not something you'd normally see in a match, and that's exactly the point. The ref had no choice but to call for a disqualification, ending the match right then and there. You might be thinking, wait, isn't that against the rules? And you'd be right. But here's the thing, getting himself disqualified, Jericho gave Neville an out. He ended the match quickly and safely without drawing attention to the injury or putting Neville in any more danger. It's like a magic trick. Jericho made the audience focus on his actions, while behind the scenes, he was actually solving a serious problem. This quick thinking didn't go unnoticed. Backstage, Jericho was praised for his professionalism and his ability to adapt on the fly. It's a reminder that being a great wrestler isn't just about having the best moves or the most convincing promos. It's about being able to handle the unexpected, to think on your feet when things go sideways. But let's take a step back and look at the bigger picture. Why is this such a big deal? Well, in the world of professional wrestling, injuries are no joke. When a performer gets hurt for real, it's not just their health on the line, it's their career, their livelihood. Continuing a match with an injured opponent isn't just risky, it's downright dangerous. Imagine if Jericho had decided to just keep going with the match as planned. Neville could have been seriously hurt, maybe even ended up with a career-ending injury. And for what? A few more minutes of entertainment? It's not worth it, and Jericho knew that. Royal Rumble Chaos. Let's rewind to the 2005 Royal Rumble, where chaos reigned supreme, and even the boss himself couldn't stick to the plan. It was the climax of the Royal Rumble match. The crowd was on their feet as John Cena and Batista, two of WWE's rising stars, were the last men standing. They were trading blows, each trying to toss the other over the top rope. The tension was palpable. Who was going to win this thing? And then, it happened. In a moment that nobody saw coming, Cena and Batista tumbled over the top rope together, hitting the floor at the exact same time. The refs were confused. The announcers were speechless. The fans? They were losing their minds. This wasn't supposed to happen. In the carefully choreographed world of WWE, simultaneous eliminations weren't part of the playbook. But there they were, two future megastars lying on the floor with no clear winner in sight.
You, Dave Batista, the Royal Rumble. You both, I don't know if it was on purpose, doesn't feel like it, went over the rope at the same exact time because of what appeared to be some sort of balance issue.
It was not Dave's fault. That was on me.
Now, imagine you're Vince McMahon, the mastermind behind WWE. You're watching this unfold on a monitor backstage, and you realize that your main event just went off the rails. What do? If you're Vince, you take matters into your own hands. Without missing a beat, he stormed out of the back, heading straight for the ring. The crowd went wild as the boss himself appeared, ready to sort out this mess. As Vince power walked down that long entrance ramp, disaster struck. He tried to slide into the ring in his signature style, but something went terribly wrong. In an instant, both of his quadricep muscles tore.
And then, as we trust the process, out comes Vince McMahon. And we're like, oh, great, this is going to be fixed. And he tears both of his quads getting into the ring.
But Vince McMahon didn't get to where he is by giving up easily. Even with two torn quads, he started barking orders from his seated position on the canvas. Referees were running back and forth. Cena and Batista were looking confused. The crowd was eating up every second of this unscripted drama. In the end, they restarted the match with just Cena and Batista. Batista won, but that's almost beside the point.
And because he is the authority figure in WWE, he can say restart the match, and we restart it, and Dave wins.
What everyone remembers is the sheer chaos of those few minutes when nobody, not the wrestlers, not the refs, and certainly not Vince McMahon, knew what was going to happen next. This moment of genuine confusion added a level of excitement that you just can't script. It's like watching a high-wire act without a safety net. Sure, WWE is entertainment, but when things go off script like this, it reminds us that these are real people in real situations, where anything can happen. The fallout from this event was huge. WWE had to rethink how they handle Royal Rumble finishes. They implemented new rules and backup plans to avoid similar situations in the future. But more than that, it changed how fans watch these events. For Cena and Batista, this moment became a pivotal part of their careers. They were no longer just up-and-coming stars. They were now at the center of one of the most talked-about moments in WWE history. It's like they got a crash course in dealing with the unexpected right there in front of millions of viewers. And Vince McMahon, well, he added another chapter to his legend. The image of him sitting on the mat, torn quads and all, still calling the shots, became iconic. It showed just how committed he was to the show, willing to push through incredible pain to make sure the fans got their money's worth. R-Truth and Brock Lesnar. We've seen some pretty intense moments when wrestlers go off script, but not every unplanned moment ends in chaos or injury. Sometimes it's all about the laughs. And when it comes to bringing the funny, nobody does it quite like R-Truth. In 2020, R-Truth did something that most people thought was impossible. He made Brock Lesnar laugh. Yes, you heard that right. Brock Lesnar, the beast incarnate, the guy who looks like he eats nails for breakfast, cracked up on live TV.
There was a point where I was like, I knew I had Brock because he was caught up into the story I was talking about and me seeing how big he was and the snap about. And when I knew I was going to deliver the line and he laughed, I felt like I could check that off on my box. That was a memorable moment that went down in history I won't ever forget.
Lesnar was in the ring, all business as usual. He had that intimidating scowl on his face, the one that makes grown men shake in their boots. Then, out of nowhere, R-Truth showed up. Now, R-Truth isn't exactly known for his strategic thinking. In fact, his whole gimmick is based on being hilariously clueless about, well, pretty much everything. So what did R-Truth do? He started rambling about how he wanted to challenge Lesnar for the WWE Championship. The only problem? Lesnar didn't have the championship at the time. It's a classic R-Truth moment of confusion, and it's absolutely golden. At first, Lesnar tried to keep a straight face. You could see him fighting it, trying to maintain that fearsome persona. But R-Truth just kept going, and eventually, even the beast can't hold it in anymore. Lesnar broke character, laughing right there in the middle of the ring.
I know you will go flying over that top rope, Paul Heyman.
Oh, Heyman?
I'm not in the Royal Rumble match.
Now, normally, breaking character like this would be a big no-no in WWE. But here's where things get interesting. This moment wasn't just tolerated by WWE management, it was encouraged. They saw the value in these spontaneous, genuine interactions. It's like they finally realized that sometimes the best moments in wrestling are the ones you can't script. And for R-Truth? Well, moments like these are solid gold. They showcase his natural charisma and quick wit. It's one thing to make the fans laugh, but making your fellow wrestlers break character? That's next level stuff. It's the kind of thing that can elevate a wrestler from being just another name on the roster to becoming a fan favorite. But it's not just about popularity. These unscripted moments create memories that fans will talk about for years. They become part of wrestling lore. People will be bringing up the time R-Truth made Brock Lesnar laugh long after both of them have hung up their boots. Career-ending moments. We've seen wrestlers go off script in ways that made us laugh, but sometimes breaking the rules can have serious consequences. Let's talk about two wrestlers who learned this the hard way. Remember Gail Kim? She was a standout in WWE's women's division back in the day. Well, in 2011, she decided she'd had enough of how things were going.
So I knew, ultimately, okay, if the boss doesn't like me, what am I doing here, right?
Yeah.
Picture this. It's a battle royal match, and instead of waiting to be eliminated, Gail just eliminates herself. That's right, she rolled right under the bottom rope and walked away. This wasn't just Gail having a bad day. It was a deliberate act of rebellion against the company's creative decisions. The fallout? Well, let's just say Gail and WWE didn't exactly part on good terms. This moment marked the end of her time with the company. But Gail's story isn't the only one. Let's talk about Juventud Guerrera. If you were a fan in the early 2000s, you might remember him as an exciting high flyer. Well, turns out those high-flying moves were exactly what got him into trouble. During a SmackDown taping, Juventud decided to pull out all the stops. He performed several high-flying moves that were banned by WWE. WWE management felt that Juventud had screwed everyone else by showing off like that. It wasn't just about breaking rules, it was about undermining the whole roster. And guess what? He got fired shortly after. The pipe bomb. There's one moment that stands out above all others. A moment that didn't just break the script, it shattered it into a million pieces. I'm talking about CM Punk's infamous pipe bomb promo on June 27, 2011. Monday Night Raw was winding down, and CM Punk grabbed a microphone. What happened next was nothing short of revolutionary. Punk started talking, and it quickly became clear this wasn't your typical WWE promo.
I want you to listen to me. I want you to digest this, because before I leave in 3 weeks with your WWE Championship, I have a lot of things I want to get off my chest.
He was not hyping up a match or calling out an opponent. No, Punk was airing out all of WWE's dirty laundry. He was criticizing the company's management, their treatment of wrestlers, and even calling out specific people by name. Now, parts of this promo were planned, sure, but Punk was given the freedom to speak his mind, and boy did he take advantage of it. He talked about being held back by the company. He mentioned other wrestling promotions by name, a big no-no in WWE. He even called out Vince McMahon's son-in-law, Triple H. When Punk's mic finally cut out, It felt less like WWE pulling the plug and more like Punk saying everything he wanted to say. He walked the line between script and reality so perfectly that fans were left wondering, was this real? Did CM Punk just quit on live TV? The aftermath was immediate and intense. Suddenly, everyone was talking about CM Punk and WWE. Merchandise sales went through the roof. Ticket demand for upcoming events skyrocketed. It's like Punk had injected a shot of adrenaline straight into the heart of WWE. This promo kicked off what fans would call the Summer of Punk. Punk was portrayed as the anti-establishment rebel, fighting against a system that wanted to hold him down. Sound familiar? It should. This storyline took real-life frustrations and turned them into compelling TV. But the impact of the pipe bomb promo went far beyond just one storyline. It changed how fans viewed promos and storytelling in WWE. Suddenly, the old style of yelling about how you're going to beat someone up felt outdated. Fans wanted more reality, more emotion, more of that raw, unscripted feel. Even years later, the pipe bomb promo is still talked about as one of the most memorable moments in WWE history. It was studied by aspiring wrestlers and dissected by fans. Why? Because it felt real in a way that wrestling rarely does. The Hitman vs. Shawn Michaels. We've seen some wild moments in WWE, but nothing quite compares to what went down on November 9th, 1997. If you're a wrestling fan, you probably already know what I'm talking about. That's right, we're diving into the Montreal Screwjob, the granddaddy of all unscripted WWE moments. It was the Survivor Series pay-per-view in Montreal, Canada. Bret, the Hitman Hart, was defending his WWE Championship against his real-life rival, Shawn Michaels. Here's the deal. Bret Hart's contract with WWE was up, and he was heading to their rival company, WCW. Now, Vince McMahon, the big boss of WWE, didn't want Bret leaving as champion. But Bret? He wasn't too keen on losing the title in his home country of Canada. So, what did Vince do? He cooked up a plan so sneaky, so underhanded, that people are still talking about it more than 2 decades later. Without Bret's knowledge, Vince decided to change the ending of the match. He told the referee, Earl Hebner, to ring the bell and end the match while Shawn had Bret in his own signature move, the sharpshooter. When it happened, nobody could believe it. Bret was furious. He spat in Vince's face and destroyed equipment at ringside. The fans were confused and angry. And Shawn Michaels? Well, he played along, but later claimed he knew nothing about the plan. The fallout was massive. Bret Hart left WWE on the sourest of notes, heading to WCW with a chip on his shoulder the size of Canada. His relationship with Vince McMahon and WWE was completely shattered. We're talking years of bad blood here. But it wasn't just Bret who felt the impact. Shawn Michaels, who was in on the plan, faced serious backlash from fans and fellow wrestlers. Many saw him as a traitor, someone who was willing to stab a colleague in the back for his own gain. It took years for Shawn to rebuild his reputation. And what about Vince McMahon? Well, in a weird twist, the Montreal Screwjob actually helped him. See, after this incident, Vince leaned into his role as the evil boss. He became the character of Mr. McMahon, the tyrannical owner who would do anything to get his way. This led to some of the most memorable storylines in WWE history, especially his feud with Stone Cold Steve Austin. The Montreal Screwjob didn't just affect the people directly involved, it changed the entire wrestling industry. Suddenly, the line between what was real and what was scripted became very, very blurry. Fans started scrutinizing every match, every promo, wondering if what they were seeing was part of the show or another shoot moment. It also changed how wrestlers viewed their relationships with wrestling companies. The idea that a company could so blatantly go against a wrestler's wishes made many performers more cautious. Contracts became more detailed, and wrestlers started to look out for their own interests more. Years later, Bret Hart and Vince McMahon would eventually bury the hatchet. Bret returned to WWE, was inducted into the Hall of Fame, and even had a match at WrestleMania. But the impact of that night in Montreal never really went away. The price of breaking the rules. We've seen wrestlers go off script in some pretty wild ways, but what happens when the dust settles? Let's talk about the price of breaking the rules in WWE. Remember Batista, the Animal, the multiple-time world champion. Well, even he wasn't immune to WWE's wrath when he decided to color outside the lines. Back in 2008, during a cage match against Chris Jericho, Batista did something WWE had been trying to crack down on. He bladed. For those not in the know, that's when a wrestler intentionally cuts themselves to draw blood. Now you might be thinking, what's the big deal? Isn't wrestling all about the drama? Well, yes and no. WWE was trying to clean up its image, moving away from the blood and gore of the Attitude Era. They wanted to appeal to a wider audience, including kids and sponsors who might not be too keen on seeing wrestlers turn into human fountains. So what happened to Batista? He got slapped with a fine, and we're not talking about a slap on the wrist here. WWE hit him with a $100,000 penalty. That's right, 6 figures for a little bit of blood. Batista later said he thought the fine would only be around $25,000. Imagine his surprise when he found out it was 4 times that amount. But Batista's case isn't the only one. Let's talk about Daniel Bryan, the beloved underdog who became a fan favorite. In 2010, during the NXT Invasion angle, Bryan got a little too into character. He choked announcer Justin Roberts with his own tie. It looked intense, it looked real, and it freaked out some of WWE's key advertisers. What happened next? WWE released Bryan from his contract. Just like that, one of the most talented wrestlers in the world was out of a job because he went a little too far with his actions. It's a stark reminder that in WWE, there's a fine line between putting on a great show and going too far. But here's where things get tricky. WWE has to walk a tightrope between maintaining control and allowing for those genuine, spontaneous moments that fans love. Remember Titus O'Neil? He once got a 90-day suspension for playfully grabbing Vince McMahon's arm. It might seem like an overreaction, but it shows how seriously WWE takes its rules and image. These punishments have had a big impact on how wrestlers behave both in and out of the ring. They're more cautious now, always aware that one wrong move could cost them big time. It's changed the overall WWE product too. The shows are more polished, more controlled, but some fans argue that they've lost some of that raw, unpredictable edge. On the flip side, these rules have pushed wrestlers to be more creative in other ways. They can't rely on blood or ultra-violence to tell their stories, so they've had to up their game in terms of character work and in-ring psychology. It's a different kind of performance, but one that requires just as much skill. And let's not forget about promos. Remember when Ric Flair went off script during a corporate event in 2004? He said some things that were, let's say, not exactly PG. The result? Vince McMahon cracked down hard on unscripted promos. Now, wrestlers have to stick much closer to the script when they're on the mic. But some of the most memorable moments in wrestling history have come from wrestlers going off script. Think about CM Punk's pipe bomb promo or The Rock's impromptu insults. There's a magic to those unplanned moments that you just can't recreate with a script. So, WWE is constantly trying to find that sweet spot. They want to maintain control, keep their sponsors happy, and present a polished product. But they also know that fans crave those authentic, unscripted moments. It's a delicate balance and one that they're still figuring out.